Thank you. We mentioned earlier sectors and what is sector specific and what is generic. So one of the reflections, Mike and I met a few months ago at a conference in Singapore, and he was presenting the work that he's been leading in the context of FS-ISAC. And there are a lot of similarities between telco and financial services. So one of the key similarities is that we operate in a global environment, we rely on standards. This also creates some challenges, and you've seen some of the sort of the evolving landscape of what's happening from a government and policy at global level. And for this reason, I invited Mike to come and share some of the work that the FS-ISAC team has been doing, because we see that there are potential areas of collaboration between financial services and telco. There's work that can be leveraged across the two organizations and generally across different these two sectors. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Laura. Let's get set up here. So, all right. First off, my heart goes out to anyone impacted in Florida with the upcoming storm. You know, Ron White, the comedian, said that there's that we have a terror scale and an alert scale here in America, goes from blue to red, right? And no one knows what you're supposed to do in yellow versus amber, right? It's very unclear. So this comedian said, we should simplify it. You should have 2 steps. Get a helmet and put on the helmet. That's all you need, okay? Florida is put on the helmet time. Fortunately, with PQC and financial services, we're not quite at that step. We're still at get the helmet stage. Okay, so hi, I'm Mike Silverman. I'm from FS-ISAC. Quick show of hands, how many of you know what ISACs are? Okay, only the speakers seem to, and maybe one more, because I speak with them a lot. All right, so the short story of what ISACs are. Every industry, major industries have there's a telco ISAC, there's a health ISAC, there's a financial services ISAC, FS-ISAC. We are all not-for-profits that our raison d'etre is to keep that sector safe, secure, resilient. One of the key things we do is when one of our members gets attacked, we collect that information from them safely and securely. We validate it, anonymize it, and share it with the rest of the community. Sort of a collective defense type approach. Because when financial institution A sees something, it's only a matter of time before B, C, and D see the exact same thing. We also do best practices, we do exercises, and where I come into play, I look at the long-term threats. What's going to impact us in the next few years? Cloud computing is changing the way we're doing things. Artificial intelligence is changing the way we're doing things, as is post-quantum cryptography. Gee, I wonder why I'm here. So, FS-ISAC happens to be the largest of the ISACs. We have over 5,000 members worldwide. We work in 75 countries, work with governments and institutions around the world. Specifically in post-quantum cryptography, we work with CISA, with Gary. We work with GSMA, with Lori. We work with the QSFF, with Europol in Europe, the Dutch, the Canadian CIFR, you name it, the CSA in Singapore. We work with them all. Where's that clicker? Here we go. Okay. So what you're going to hear from me isn't really going to, well, you'll hear some differences from before. Oh, hang on. But I'm here to give you what Gary said is right, what the last panel said was absolutely right, what Luke just said was right. I'm not going to disagree with anything that. I'm going to give you the financial services lens, and you'll see where there are differences and where there's a lot of similarities between telco, financial services, and many industries as a whole. So the cryptography challenge we have today, there's a lot of words on slides here. I've done this several times, and I tend to get the same answer. In your institutions, raise your hand if you know where 100% of your cryptographic keys are. Actually, I have a person in the back. I don't believe you at all. You're the first hand I've ever seen in hundreds of people. I don't believe you. The reality is, if we don't know where our keys are, we don't even know how to tackle this PQC problem, right? We don't even know what cryptography may be there, what type of devices they're running on, right? So that for us is a huge problem. We have to start that effort. Next, look, we've all been through cryptographic transitions before. Someone mentioned SHA-1. There was the RSA 1024 to 2048 transition. There was the single DES, the triple DES transition, if you have enough lack of hair or gray hair enough to remember that, okay? Here's the problem we have in financial services. We're still stuck in some places on single DES. And that was 20-something years ago we started this transition. That's the reality of where we are. It tends to be lower developed countries. It tends to be hardware devices that are old and they don't have the infrastructure, the capabilities to replace those devices. But still, we still have to work with very high secure end and low secure end where the investments are made. And the reality is, okay, we're going to embrace this PQC thing, which we've been all talking about. Every one of these transitions is getting harder and harder. There's point of sale systems for us to worry about. There's things now in the cloud that wasn't there a few years ago, right? The number of endpoints, the number of systems, the number of connected networks goes up and up and up exponentially. Oh, and I'll make things even harder for financial services. It's not enough that you handle yourself to your customers. Think of exchanges. Think of stock exchanges. Think of payment networks where you all have to be talking the same language at the same time. It's not enough to say, oh, okay, you know, in 1 year from now, we'll just all be PQC. We'll be great. There's not going to be any hybrid and we're not going to have any legacy tech to worry about. We know we're going to have legacy, and CISA's paper on hybrid is absolutely right on this. They're really going to have to balance the PQC and non-PQC sides of the world. Come on. There we go. So what did we do about this? So last March, we published 4 papers for financial services. We said, start your inventory. We talked about that, okay? We said, do a current state assessment. What do your processes look like today, right? How do you do key rotations? When do you do key rotations? Are they consistent across your business units, right? Where do you store all these things, right? All that has to be considered because if we're going to go to a whole new landscape with PQC, we need to understand where we are today. So this is a second paper we've written. Now, of course, the question is, when is Q day going to happen? When is the cryptographic relevant computer going to happen? Let's say it's 10 years, okay? I don't know, it's as good of a guess as anyone's in this room, right? If it's 10 years, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but financial services will not be 100% ready in 10 years, even if we threw all of our resources behind it today. We just won't. We're too big, too complex, and to be honest, the investments have to go in multiple places rather than just PQC. So what do we do in that case? We have to migrate the riskiest things first. And for that, we need a risk model. How do we assess what the riskiest things are? And that's what the risk model paper does. And we also talk about future state considerations. Okay, so through all of this, I've been talking about post-quantum cryptography, and the whole rationale for that is because these cryptographic relevant computers are going to come online in the next 10 years and cause problems for us. Anyone remember last Halloween here in the States? I don't know about you, I had gone trick-or-treating with my kids. I was exhausted, laid down on that couch, just scrolling through LinkedIn, right? Just, as you do, And all of a sudden I came across an article where someone had claimed to break RSA, right? Not even with a cryptographic computer, they had found they claimed they had a mathematical flaw with RSA, which meant you can forget that 10-year time horizon. It's now. Now, we quickly jumped into action, right? And we quickly analyzed it. And this paper, there was a lot of red flags about this paper. It was not written the way we would expect an academic paper to be written. And we said, well, where's this? Oh, this is another paper that has yet to be published. And then, oh, you get that paper. Oh, it turned out to be a scam. But that really threw the gauntlet to us, especially in financial services, that we may not have 10 years. We may have way less than that. And look, financial services, more than any other industry, is built on trust. Okay? Trust that when your customers give you money, that you're going to give it back to them with whatever amount you're supposed to give. Trust that within financial institutions, when you make trades, even if a financial institution loses money on a trade, they're still going to own up to it, because that's the only way this system works, on trust. And so cryptography and security are one of the fundamental, paramount things we have within financial services. If we can't protect the data, the system is over. And we can't have that in global financial services, the way money and things move. You know, someone once joked with me, I think we found a way to prevent PQC, totally PQC safe. Forget these digital payments, just go back to pen and paper. And I went, well, you're right, but oh boy, that's not the way the world works anymore, is it? So, another story for you. Let's say we get PQC. Let's say we're there. Let's say we make the work and we do this one-time transition to get us all from RSA or any async security to PQC security. Okay. I was with the great Dr. Mosca, we've heard him mention a few times, talking with him in Canada this April. We were on stage and we both check our emails afterwards, and we see a paper written by a Chinese researcher claiming to have broken what's called lattice math. And we both paused. This paper looked real. This did not have the hallmark signs of a scam. This looked accurate, right? We got worried. Now, I'm a math minor. I'm not a math PhD or anything like that, so bear with me here for a minute. So I think Kyber is n squared lattice math, and this paper was only n, or vice versa. I apologize on that. But whatever the case is, it was not a quite direct attack on Kyber. But if someone was able to get this paper working, it wouldn't be a far stretch to break Kyber, which would undo all of the work we had done to become PQC in the first place, right? So, turns out, after research, the community did proper research on this, and the research community found, I think there were like 10 steps. There was a problem in step 8. The researcher, I think it was Chinese researcher, acknowledged the error and said, I cannot reconcile this, fine, and retracted the paper. Okay. But what happens next? Is someone take this paper and go, oh, I can find a solution for step 8, or I can go from 6 to 9 and bypass 7 and 8. We don't know. So again, while we think these are one-offs and while this transition to PQC is great, this may not be the end all. We have to think that this is not going to be the end. We have to think that we need to be more agile in doing this. And that's what this slide is about, is what's called crypto agility. And I know some people have thrown that term around, but I'll tell you, Gary and I were in a meeting last year. People were throwing out these terms, crypto hybrid, crypto agile, and I tell you, they were all speaking past one another. These terms were being used interchangeably. No one could clearly define what these things meant. So we said, as the working group, the PQC working group within FSISAC, which is members around the world, we said, let's go and define that. And we've spent the last year doing just that. And as timing worked out, I did not plan it this way at all. It was supposed to be a few weeks ago. Literally this morning, we published a paper that completely defines what cryptographic agility means. Yes, it has a lens for financial services, but it's applicable to almost all industries. So what is cryptographic agility? It is what I just mentioned, the ability to replace a cryptographic algorithm with minimal business disruption, right? And there's a maturity curve that comes to that. You don't get one day just wake up and go, I'm going to be crypto agile, right? You have to change processes, architecture. A lot of things go into that, right? And so that's what the paper defines. Now this slide here will tell you really what's in the paper itself. We have a technology and process maturity model. We have a cryptographic scheme adoption, the architecture that you need. We have lessons learned or what we believe are the gotchas that you have within cultural and within organizational restrictions that's going to hurt or restrict what you can do in PQC and how to get around them and more. This is by far one of the more important things that financial services is going to have to do. But again, I say this because we can't treat this as a one-off anymore. We've been through too many of these transitions and learned the hard way. Every time it gets worse and worse and worse. So this is where you can find the paper. Okay? Yep, go ahead. Yep, download it. It's only 30 pages. There's no math equations. Tom promised Tom on that. It's written in two different ways. The first half is written for a business or managerial audience making the case for action. And the second part is more technical for architects, etc. I'll leave you with this. With financial services, we are stuck with some dilemmas. And yes, everyone knows, all CISOs know we should move to PQC. Absolutely. But we have to balance that between that artificial intelligence capabilities that the firm wants us to develop. Electronic payments are going faster and faster and faster. How do we keep up our infrastructure to maintain that? Some people want to invest in cryptocurrencies. And how do we embrace that? There's just so much disruption and change within financial services. It's not enough to just say, oh, just go divert everything and be PQC. We have to balance this out. So we have to make the case for action, and we as a community have to do this together. Thank you.